Hello everyone. In this ride I am going to race the Stage 5 Tour of Watopia A distance. This is on the Deca Dash route in Watopia. This will be 10 laps around Jarvis Island, including the 2 climbs. It's a small group. There's only 14 riders in the A category. I am riding this with my coach. You can see him, 2 riders behind me right now, Dan Corridor. Right off the bat here, so I knew that he was a little fatigued because he had run this morning quite hard, short but quite hard. So we were going to work together as much as we could, but right off the bat here I was wondering if he was already suffering or just had a momentary lapse. I actually didn't talk to him about the start, so I'm not exactly sure what happened here, or whether or not, because of this gap, I mean he's 5 seconds back and I'm at the front with the 4 riders, or I don't know if, because it's relatively long, it's 52 kilometers, if he would have preferred that I stay back in the group that he was in. I'm not sure. I'm going to assume that he meant he would have preferred to be in the front, and for whatever reason just wasn't. You see him working to get to the front now. So I was actually worried at this point. We weren't on voice chat at all. We were communicating through the Zwift companion messaging. You'll see a couple messages back and forth, but I actually don't know what happened with the start here. I was worried that I actually did something that he wouldn't have done, but anyway, here we are, starting. I'm gonna go past the volcano and then make it down into Jarvis. So each of these 10 laps is going to include 2 short, steep climbs, relatively close to each other. So you climb up one, a little bit of a break before you start to ascend up into the other. So I knew from both him and another rider on our team that had done it, that it was kind of tough when they did it. I think they were with larger groups. Smaller group can be either tougher or easier depending on how the group is going. This turned out to be pretty moderate, I would say. I would guess if there were, like 400 riders, this would be a lot tougher, trying to stay with the front anyway. So having a relatively smaller group probably helped overall, I'd have to imagine. You never know. But so here I'm just trying to stay with the group, not get in the front, draft as much as I can, kind of see how everyone in the group is riding, reacting, and waiting for the climbs to come. we are turning into Jarvis. I rode this route, I think. So I did the C distance and the B distance. I guess I rode Jarvis twice now, but I didn't actually remember what exactly the route was. So here you can see a couple riders going off the front, and I wasn't sure if I should try to stick with them. I decided to just let them go. I probably marked this rider right in front of me. So I think that was tactically probably the right move. I'm not sure why they, you never know why, or sometimes you don't know why riders are making the moves they are, but I decided with the climbs to come and 10 of them that I wasn't gonna try to burn a match to put in a big effort right before the climb to stick with them. I had also run just yesterday. I did just a 5K zone 2 run, but it was my first run in weeks. So my legs were quite fatigued actually. So I wasn't feeling incredibly strong. So again, having heard that this route was kind of nasty, and knowing that I needed to save something for basically 20 climbs, short climbs, but 20 climbs over the 10 laps, I figured I wouldn't go with those riders and just stay with the group that I was in. So here I'm just paying attention, trying to pay attention to the watts of the riders around me. If anyone puts in a big dig, then I just try to at least keep a bit of contact, keeping an eye on Dan, on my coach, seeing where he is. At one point, you'll see him message me, I think on the second or third lap, maybe more after that he wasn't, he was fatigued and that I should not use him as the wheel to mark going up the climbs, but other wheels in case he falls back. So you can't see my messages to him, but at one point I messaged him that I mentioned this in one of my other videos, sometimes I like to be at the front of the climb just to do the climb on my own terms. Sometimes it's not always possible or practical, but one time at least here on this particular part of the climb, I climbed it in front for most of it, just because I wanted to not have to chase and to be in front. So here we are at the top of this second climb, and at this point my legs are kind of feeling it. I'm encouraged by the fact that the whole group didn't just ride away from me. At least I stuck with them for the first climb, and at this point I figured I'd just take it lap by lap. I wasn't actually sure here whether or not there were any other inclines or whether it was all just downhill and flat, so I was staying conservative. I learned quickly that there's a little 2% gradient that comes up here after this decline and flat before it goes into a couple negative 5% declines where you'll see on each lap I get some recovery. I even stopped pedaling a couple of times, just let my weight take me down. Here's that little 2% incline. You'll see some riders will crank up the power on this. So again, just trying to keep an eye on everything here. decline done here. I'm learning what the lap is like here as we come through this point. One thing about this route is that there are several opportunities for power-ups. You'll notice that I will save, favor the feathers, the lightweight, since my rider weight, again, as I mentioned in other videos, 95 kilograms. So heavy for cyclists, heavy for a climber. So I save the feathers whenever I can on these climbing routes. Also notice that going through that last arch there, that riders did inevitably crank up the watts back up to that 3 watts per kilogram, right around in that range. And through this sprint point here, you'll see people start to wind up before the climb. So I quickly realized sort of that pattern of some of the riders. I was prepared for that. And speaking of power-ups, I waited to use the power-up on the second climb because I was feeling okay climbing with the group on the first climb, and I figured it would be best to save the power up for the second one. So that's what I did almost every lap, if not every lap. So we're coming up into the second climb here, pretty much with the same group that I was with. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7 in our group, with a couple off the back. At this point, I don't even think I noticed that 2 people in this group were lapped already. One of them is at 2.2 kilometers and the other is at 3.9 kilometers. So strategy-wise, they weren't really someone that I needed to mark because they weren't at the same distance that I was. So if I'm, worried about being at the front of the group, even though they're in the group, they won't finish at the same time that I will. So I only need to pay attention to them in so much as their activity might cause other riders to ride differently. So I just need to keep an eye on the riders with the same distance as me. So up that first climb there, 170 beats a minute, starting to feel it in the legs at this point. And I know that it's a bit of an effort to go straight from that other climb. Again, these are short climbs, but they do sap the legs, especially after, again, doing them 10 times each. So this one, inevitably, people will push a little more watts, get up in that 6 to 7 watts a kilogram range. And what was really hurting here is I wanted to take a break kind of right here. You'll see me sit down and kind of take off, but if any of these riders had really pushed consistently over 5 or 6 watts a kilogram for even a couple more seconds through this section here, I would have been dropped a lot earlier. So I was happy that they were likewise sort of sitting up, not putting in the full effort through the banner there. So here on the second one, I'm just happy with this decline that's coming, remembering that there is that 2% gradient coming up. But then just settling in, I I know what I'm in for now. And just trying to keep an eye on the group and see where I can land, how strong I am relative to everyone else who's riding in this group. So here, coming into the fourth climb, you can see a couple of riders are gonna put in a dig to get away here. You got Dixon ahead of me. Actually, at this point, hadn't noticed that Dixon was, again, not really contending in what I was contending with, because they were 6 kilometers less in total distance. You got Corey here in front, who I am contending with, so I'm putting in a dig to try to stay with them, and notice that my coach is dropping back at this point. So I actually was wondering whether or not I should let up, although I think it was after this point that he let me know that I shouldn't try to stay with him. I think at this point I was wondering if I should drop back, but I decided to stick with the front here. Again, not realizing at this point, I'm almost positive that Dixon wasn't necessarily someone that I needed to stay with. Corey, I had a battle with to the end, actually right up until this point. You'll see on the last lap, Corey and I were battling, and then something odd, unexpected happened to Corey that was advantageous for me. So stay tuned to the end to see that. But at this point, it's the 3 of us at the front. It'll all come back together. Not all, but M. Okan does come back to us. And Dan, my coach, makes it back as well. And I think you'll probably see him here. I think this is when he mentions that he was trying to get back to the front, so that I shouldn't have, make sure I don't push at the front when he's trying to get back. So that was a good reminder by him. There he goes. Don't push in the front. Just let him get back on. So we're all back together here. I know he's feeling it, my coach. I always keep an eye on what it seems like the dynamics of the other riders are. We're pretty evenly matched, the riders in this group, so I'd have to assume that if you can see me there sending a message to Dan, we start to talk back and forth about that effort there, and staying with the pack and being up front and pushing in some tactics. But I have to I assume that everyone's feeling it just like I am, so take that to heart and know everyone's sort of feeling it. Notice at this point that M. Okan seems to be instigating things at the front and potentially one of the stronger riders, at least presenting that way at this point. I also notice C. Ju here, 9 seconds ahead. And again, I hadn't noticed that they were not at the same distance, which would explain why it seems like they came out of nowhere. It's because we're lapping them. But I just I didn't figure that out. So I actually was worried about a couple of riders that I didn't need to be. But yeah, with Emokan seeming to be one of the stronger ones and always at the front, I tried to sort of mark them as much as I could. They were putting out high watts. I tried to just match for as long as I could and just keep a little contact. That seemed to be one of my main nemesis is there. Dan is still with us at this point, which is good. Yeah, another climb done. That is climb number 5, I believe. So we're halfway done at this point. 40 minutes in, averaging 285 watts, currently at 170 beats. I'm in a hard gear up these climbs. At the end, I'm in the hardest gear that I could be for maybe the entire last lap from the start of the first climb. I talked about it a couple videos previous that I'm running out of gears, partly because of just fatigue in the legs and feeling like I need to get the power from mashing on hard gears. So looking forward to getting my legs back and not having to be in that predicament. So here you'll see Dan make me aware that one of the riders isn't in the same distance as us, which is very timely because that's the rider there, Dixon, that winds up and gets off the front. And if he hadn't told me that just a couple of seconds before, I may have tried to stay with that rider. So you'll see me there texting him thanks, because I hadn't realized that. And now halfway in, I'm finally able to pay attention to, right now it's just the 3 of us. It's Emo Khan at 27.8 kilometers, myself and Dan. You can see Corey 8 seconds back. They will make it back to the group, pushing 5 watts a kilogram, getting back. And right now, Emo Khan is up at 3.5 to 4 watts, maybe trying to chase down the Dixon rider. Here you see a rider go by, again, 9 kilometers down, so not really a concern of mine. And so here we're coming into climb number 6. Again, 3 of us, Corey pushing back. They'll get back onto us before the start of the climb, I believe. Not sure if they take that momentum through the climb. Let's see what happens here on this climb. This turns out to be a pivotal climb here. You'll see Corey, I believe, start to wind up here and put in a big effort up the climb. Corey M and Mo Khan, so I'm putting in a dig to stay with them up over 7 watts a kilogram for both of them there. And this is where Dan gets dropped. So good run with him to this point. I knew or I had a pretty good idea from what he was saying that he wasn't gonna maybe last the whole way because he was kind of just holding on. So after that climb, I'm hurting here a little bit, 173 beats, and happy to see that I'm at least catching back up to Okan here. Again, if Okan had put in another sustained effort and not taking it down between these 2 climbs, I probably would have been dropped myself here. But again, everyone's hurting in the same way, so happy to get back on the wheel here and try to wind up and just keep contact up this last climb. See him up over in the red numbers there, up over 8 watts a kilogram for a split second. But I'm still able to hang on here. Corey seems to be, you can see Corey taking off there under 1 watt a kilogram, a little before the rest of us. So I noticed that, and seems likely that they aren't maybe as strong as Okan and I are at this point. Still able to keep contact. You can see they're 4 seconds back, but they're going to make it back up to us. So just taking note of how sporadic their efforts appear to be relative to ours at this point. here we are, 4 climbs to go, including the one on this lap, the 2 on this lap, or the set on this lap. And you can see a dig here by Emma Khan getting some daylight. And I think you'll see a pretty big dig from them. There they go. And they get a gap on all of us. And again, I'm happy that they decide to sit up in between these 2 climbs, because I'm having trouble keeping up the whole time. So I was fortunate that they decided to not keep their effort up. Here, when they put in the dig on the little flat part here, flattish part, I was concerned, but then they backed off again, and I was able to get back up to them. Again, Corey is hanging in there, but watts are a little less consistent than us. Again, just noting that, but they're right on my wheel there. So just gonna make it up over this climb, grinding out the gears here. 73 RPM, over 500 watts, 174 beats, and just on the back, up in the red numbers for Ocon there, and there's some daylight between both of them. I believe I catch them on the descent here, but again, with each lap, a little more daylight happening between us. So I know that I'm just gotta moderate my effort. So Ocon has a couple of seconds on us here. I'm trying to just put in some power on the declines to try to catch up with them when we do get back with them here. Now just resetting for the next set of climbs. this climb, I was actually happy and surprised to start it in front. Again, I mentioned sometimes I like to do the climbs on my own terms. You see me switch down to a harder gear here and just try to hammer up and be in the front, which I am for maybe half of it, which again I think really helps me. Obviously, if someone just comes surging past me from behind, there may not be much I can do about it, but you can see the gap here is negligible, and I chalk that up to the fact that I started the climb. I actually see here, this may be where I see if I get a second on these riders, so you see I get a second on them. I actually think, and you see me turn off the graph there just to see how far back they are. I actually am contemplating here, so I wind up here. I'm contemplating whether or not I try to put in a little gap. Maybe they're broken a little bit. So I'm watching their watts and the gap behind to them. So I figured I'd put in a little dig and just keep the watts up. You know, I'm not going crazy here, 2.5, 3.5 watts, but you can see it's a watt per kilogram over what they're doing. So instead of waiting for them and being at the back of their group, I figured I'd just put in a little bit here and see if I could maybe do something to them. They come right back, but it's again, from that last climb to there, that gave me a little bit of confidence that they weren't just hammering through the whole, able to hammer through the whole thing. I'm sure if they were, they would have. So just gearing up for the last few climbs here. Last two climbs, I guess. So here is an interesting turn of events. Just to get some recovery, I wind up, just put the power up a bit just so I could coast down, and I noticed that I had another gap, small gap, back to Ocon and Corey there. So I think after this decline, you may see me put in, taken off right here, you may see me put in another dig, thinking that they're hurting. Yeah, so here I go here on a little bit of the flat, and I do get a bit of a gap on as we come into another decline here, get a bit of a gap on Ocon, and I think this is where their rubber band snaps actually. See, they're 2 seconds back and at 2.7 watts a kilogram. Corey makes it back up to me. There they go there. And I think they push in the front a bit, and we keep Ocon away at this point, if I'm not mistaken. This is the last Ocon has contact with our group, so it's just 2 of us from here on out, which I didn't expect. So you can see that gap increasing, 2 seconds back to Ocon, even though they're up at 3 watts a kilogram. Just our group is moving just a little bit faster than them. So now it's just me and Corey on these last 2 climbs. So here, again, it's encouraging that I'm able to be at the front of this climb, and just keeping an eye on the watts of Corey right behind me. Again, their watts seem to be jumping around a little more than mine, taking a little more rests in between. This is the penultimate climb here, or set of climbs. So I'm just not wanting to waste too much here, unless it seems like I've completely broken them. I'm just gonna try to, again, keep contact. If I see an opportunity to push, I might, or I would. So again, I see them go up over 6 watts a kilogram, so I increase my watts too, just to keep up with them, try to match up and over this last climb. Again, it's good that they're not rushing in front of me, so it seems very likely that I'm at least as strong as they are at this point, and judging by how inconsistent relatively their watts are, I at this point consider myself stronger and ready for being able to outpace them at the end, or at least try to. You can see here I get a 2-second gap on them. They're putting in a dig to get back. I think they do actually get back to me at some point here. Yeah, here they come. So here we are, coming into the last 2 climbs, head to head with Corey. Again, I'm gonna try to just do the climb on my own terms. I'm feeling that I'm stronger than them at this point. Here, I think this is me actually trying to put in a big effort, but this is what my big effort is at this point. They come surging past, and I'm able to keep up with them both over 7 watts a kilogram briefly here. They do get a gap, but again, see how they went down to 0 watts there briefly, up to 3.5, back to 1.6. So inconsistent, up to 7 to 5, down to 1. So here, this gap is a little concerning. I'm really feeling it. You can see it in my face here. I'm trying to get back on terms, and at this point I'm like, oh, they're gonna at this point I'm wondering, am I going to, how much will I be able to get them on the downhill? And then look at that, for some reason they stop. And we'll never know why. Were they broken to the point where they just had to stop? Did they have a mechanical? Did they have a technical issue? I don't know. They do get going again eventually. But I was surprised by this, obviously heartened by it. And so I just keep pushing on here and keep it on the watts in case there you can see me really struggling here to finish this. I'm in the hardest gear at this point. No more gears to go. And I'm really struggling. But up and over this last climb, and there goes Corey there, up over 7 watts. And I just, at this point, I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to make up as much time on whoever is ahead of me as I can. I actually wasn't exactly, you can see that it says I'm third out of 27 there, but I haven't been keeping track of who those two riders were that were in front of me. You can see me get down in a sort of TT-ish position here because I'm resigned that I'm just going to put in an effort to sort of TT this home for the last 3 kilometers. Partly just to make sure that Corey doesn't make it back, and partly in case I can make it up to anyone or make up time on anyone, and or make up time on anyone who is in front of me. So at this point I'm just kind of finding, well, there's that TT ish position. Just kind of finding a rhythm here. Again, this might be my hardest gear. If not, it's my second to the hardest gear. And I feel like I can keep it up over around 300 watts. So I'm just going to try to do that for the duration of the end here. Here, really hurting, but just winding up the watts to bring it home. All in all, this was a good ride. Definitely an interesting challenge with the 2 short climbs each lap. And again, I think we got off kind of easy having a smaller group, and got lucky having my coach ride with me. It's always great to have that support. But I actually ended up on Zwift Power coming in first. So I don't know who those 2 riders were ahead of me. Maybe they DNF'd or didn't have heart rate or something, or I don't know if heart rate matters actually on these group rides, but anyway, whoever they were, they are not on the Zwift power results, so ended up coming in first here out of it was a very small group, but first is first, and happy I got it done to finish off a pretty good week of riding. So that's that, done and dusted. Hour and 20 minutes down, 280 watt average, 52 kilometers, route badge. What more could you ask for? All right, thanks everyone. Thanks again for watching. I'll be back with another ride soon. Talk to you all later. Bye.